Company dinner party. My fiancé, face female assistant, openly placed a piece of eggplant she had bitten into onto his plate without hesitation. Without a second thought, Donovan picked it up and ate it. That very day, when we got home, I told him I wanted to call off our arranged engagement. He pinched the bridge of his nose, agitated. Just because I ate the eggplant she gave me? It was a piece she'd bitten into and didn't like. I corrected him. Exactly. Chloe Miller, calling you insane is no exaggeration. You're being absolutely ridiculous, blowing a tiny thing out of proportion. Fine. If you want to break up, I have no objections. Just don't come crawling back to me, begging to get back together. He was so sure I loved him, that I'd never leave. But he didn't know that even the deepest love can wear thin and die from repeated wounds. This time, I was truly leaving. That same day, I told my parents I wanted to change my fiancé. They were surprised, but they respected my choice. After that, Liam and I entered our usual silent treatment phase. He deleted and blocked me everywhere, my phone number, all my social media, even our game accounts. It was his go-to move every time we fought. He was confident I couldn't bear to lose him, that I'd humble myself and try to win him back. But this time, I stared at that add friend button and didn't press it. Not like all the times before. A week later, a notice popped up in the company group chat. It's Mr. Donovan's birthday today. He's treating everyone. Attendance is mandatory. I wanted to make a scene, so I went. As I entered the private room, I immediately saw Liam at the head of the table with Amber seated right next to him. Amber's lips were close to Liam's ear as if whispering secrets. They had an invisible bubble around them, a world no one else could enter. A moment later, they burst into laughter, so close they almost kissed. I couldn't bear to watch anymore and found a quiet corner to sit in. Everyone started giving Liam gifts, but I paid no attention. I was quietly sipping my drink when suddenly a shadow fell over me. I looked up to see Liam's overly handsome face, his expression filled with familiar annoyance. Chloe Miller, why didn't you get me a gift? In the past, for a day as important as Liam's birthday, I would have started planning ages ago. One year, I spent over 6 months building a perfectly scaled replica of the flying house from his favorite movie, Up. When the balloons lifted it into the sky, he told me we'd grow old together, just like the characters in the film. I believed him then, never imagining his promise wouldn't even last 3 years. Facing his persistent questions, I simply replied, I forgot. My attitude clearly infuriated Liam. He completely lost his patience. Chloe Miller, have you made enough of a scene? Is this tiny thing really worth a week of drama? He still had Amber's lipstick smudged on his lips, and my stomach turned. I'm not making a scene, and I'm serious about calling it off. Hearing that, Liam's expression stiffened for a second, but it quickly softened when Amber gently squeezed his hand. Chloe, please don't misunderstand. I just didn't want to waste food, that's why I gave it to Liam. If you hate me so much, next time we have dinner, I won't sit at the table. I'll just wait and eat whatever scraps are left. Amber's words instantly tugged at Liam's heart. Amber, don't talk like that. You deserve the best things in the world. Chloe Miller is the one who shouldn't be here. Who does she think she is? Does the world revolve around her tastes? Liam, you really shouldn't say things like that, Amber murmured sweetly. Chloe might be a bit dramatic, but she's still your fiancé. You should try to make her happy. I really don't want you two fighting because of me. Make her happy? Who does she think she is? He snapped. If my parents hadn't begged me to go through with this family arrangement, I'd never be with her. She gets upset over every little thing. It's so annoying. Amber walked over to me, patted my back, and said in a falsely sympathetic tone, Chloe, honestly, from a woman's perspective, you were a bit childish this time. Liam hasn't been able to sleep these past few nights because of you. While I do think your personalities don't quite match, you two are still engaged. You should both take a step back. I slapped her hand away and sneered. Amber Stone, do you know what I admire most about you? Your blatant lies, and how you can say such disgusting things while stealing someone else's boyfriend without a shred of shame. Amber's triumphant expression froze. Liam completely lost it. Chloe Miller? Who gave you permission to slander Amber like that? Slander? Then tell me, why does she have one of everything you buy for me? Why does she flaunt it in front of me at the office? Why does she spread rumors every time we argue? And how does she know about that birthmark in such a private place? Liam slapped me across the face in front of everyone. My ears rang and the world spun. I still saw the pity, sympathy, mockery, and disgust on the faces around me. When my hearing cleared, I heard Liam's loud declaration. From today, Feel free to like my and Amber's photos. If we hit 1,000 likes, I'm dumping Chloe Miller and marrying Amber. With that, he pulled Amber away without looking back. Before leaving, Amber gave me a smug, defiant look. After they left, people began to whisper. She doesn't even have the leverage to cause trouble. She's gone too far this time. Maybe now she regrets it. Others advised me kindly, forget your pride. Just swallow it and apologize, or Mr. Donovan really will marry Amber. I knew this was Liam's way of forcing me to apologize, but this time, I refused to back down. Not even if it killed me. The once bustling room emptied until only I remained. I picked up the remaining liquor and drained it. The fiery alcohol burned down my throat and made my eyes sting. A connection that had spanned almost our entire lives ended, leaving me hollow. The company chat was flooded with photos of Amber celebrating Liam's birthday, making him laugh. Knowing Liam's blatant favoritism toward her, colleagues eagerly chimed in. Oh my God, Mr. Donovan and Amber are so perfect together. You should find a girlfriend like Amber, not a petty, moody one like Chloe Miller. Chloe only gets by because of her family. Our Amber worked her way up, there's no comparison. Too disgusted to look anymore, I called my lawyer and instructed him to withdraw all my investments from Donovan Corporation. The next day, I went to the company to clear out my things. But in my private office, I saw Amber wearing a skimpy nightgown with her feet propped up on my desk. Her belongings filled the room, and all of mine had been thrown outside the door. This was my private office, custom built for me by Liam. Everyone in the company knew it, and no one dared to enter without permission. Amber was trampling all over me, completely disrespecting my boundaries. Too fed up to argue, I called the police immediately. At the station, Amber panicked. I was just helping Liam get some documents. Did you really have to call the police? That's my private space. Did I give you permission to enter? Taking something without permission, isn't that theft? Amber didn't reply. Then she started crying. That's when I sensed something was wrong. Sure enough, I turned around, and there stood Liam, furious. The moment she saw him, Amber threw herself into his arms. I really just wanted to help you, but Chloe insists I stole something. I have so many gifts from you, my mansion can barely fit them all. Why would I want her cheap things? This small office had been a gift from Liam to me, a reciprocal gesture for the wooden cabin I built for him. We had shared so many memories there. I thought it was the one place that wouldn't be defiled, the last shred of dignity I had left. But Liam had to tear even that away. He comforted Amber while explaining to the officer, this is all a misunderstanding. We all know each other. Sorry for the trouble. Then he turned to me, his voice dripping with disgust. Chloe Miller, what have you become? You act like a lunatic. Do you get some sick satisfaction from using your power to hurt an innocent subordinate like Amber? You've truly disappointed me. His harsh words hit me like stones. Before I could reply, Amber began her act again. Liam, don't blame Chloe. It's my fault for being careless. At worst, I'll spend a few days in jail. It's fine if people laugh at me, don't let this cause trouble between you two. Liam held her hand, full of concern. You're too kind-hearted. That's why people take advantage of you. Then he turned to me. Chloe Miller, I'm telling you, this isn't going to blow over easily. You need to apologize to Amber right now. Liam Donovan, she entered my private space without permission, and you want me to apologize to her? Do you still think she's the victim? As soon as I spoke, Amber started whimpering again. Liam scoffed. Your private space? That office belongs to Donovan Corporation. Don't forget the entire company is under my name. You only ever had temporary permission to use it. If you keep this attitude, I'll have you arrested for filing a false report. With that, he pulled Amber away. His words pierced my heart like a knife. The heart I thought had long gone numb began to ache again. For years, I poured all my efforts into supporting Donovan Corporation, believing I was building a shared future. But all I got in return was, you only ever had temporary usage rights. Before leaving the station, Liam turned back to warn me. Just a friendly heads up, the likes have already reached 990. If you keep this attitude, I really will marry Amber. I looked at Amber's contemptuous gaze and finally realized how pathetic I had been. Her tricks were obvious. A smart man like Liam couldn't have missed them, he simply chose to ignore them. The scales of his affection had long since tipped. This entire charade was just his way of getting rid of a fool like me. After that realization, whatever love I had left completely died. In the days before my move to Veridia, colleagues kept messaging me. The likes are at 994. If you don't humble yourself, your man's going to be snatched away. 997. Looks like you're destined to be an old maid. Oh, you're holding out this time, huh? Maybe you think you're not as good as Amber? I blocked and deleted them all. When the likes reached 999 and I still hadn't caved, the tension around Liam was so thick you could cut it with a knife. No one else dared to press that final like button. Just as Liam was considering how to issue another warning, someone burst into his office shouting, "Mr. Donovan! The 1000th like has been reached." I didn't ask who pressed it. I didn't have to. The roar in the hall outside Liam's office told me the answer before the messenger could. Amber's department had a habit of celebrating small victories with big noise, and someone had taken a victory lap for the 1000th like as if they'd won a championship. The group chat exploded with confetti gifts. Our HR director, who never posted anything but reminders about overtime, sent a string of balloons. Someone uploaded a photo of Liam and Amber holding a cake knife together like newlyweds. I didn't open a single message. I shut my locker, slid my access card across the reader one last time, and left the building without looking back. The sensor beeped green, then red. I'd already asked facilities to deactivate my card at noon. On the sidewalk, the city felt wrong, like the scale had shifted overnight. Everything looked familiar and yet tinier, like I had stepped out of a diorama I'd spent half my life furnishing. Cabs hissed by. A street vendor flipped skewers on a grill, smoke curling upward in slender blue ribbons. He saw me dragging a suitcase and called out a joke about running away from home. I tipped him for the line even though I didn't take the food. I spent the night at a small hotel with frosted glass lamps and a front desk clerk who whispered "We've got you" as if conspiracy hung in the air vents. I slept for 3 hours, half dreaming of a house held aloft by 1,000 balloons that kept slipping from my fingers, drifting higher each time I jumped. By morning the city had chosen its side. The gossip pages ran with it, the Donovan ultimatum, 1,000 likes for love. People didn't care that it was humiliating and cruel. They cared that it was easy to understand and easier to share. Amber reposted the headline with a tearful caption about gratitude and destiny and finding the courage to embrace happiness. Liam commented a single heart. I showered, checked out, and took the 9 a.m. train to Veridia, a river city with too many bridges and a clean, decisive skyline. When the doors opened at my stop, the air smelled like wet iron and lilacs, as if spring didn't know how to behave here. The office I walked into didn't have my name on any door. It didn't have doors at all, just an open floor lined with long desks and monitors on articulated arms. Murals in brushy colors stretched across concrete, a fox, a wind turbine, and a hand drawn in the old art school style, sinews and bones sketched with loving attention. People looked up as I entered, curious but not overeager. I loved them instantly for it. "Chloe?" A woman in black jeans and a thrift store blazer asked. "You look exactly like your emails sound, clean knives, heavy linen." That has to be the strangest compliment I've ever received. "I'm Nova," she said, shaking my hand. "Head of operations. Let me show you your desk. The window's a bit much at certain hours, but we have those accordion blinds you can yank down when it tries to set you on fire." She led me past a cluster of engineers arguing about variable names. On a whiteboard, someone had drawn a balloon with an X through it. The sight made my throat pulse once, a single reluctant sob trying to climb and failing. I rubbed my sternum, as if I could iron the thought flat. Before lunch, I had already reviewed vendor contracts, refused 3 favors politely but firmly, and circled a clause in our lease that would give us leverage when the landlord tried to raise rent for modernization. It was a relief to be needed for my brain and not my role in someone else's story. Just before 1, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize but knew by heart. I let it go to voicemail. The transcript arrived seconds later, bristling with Liam's clipped vowels. "Chloe, I assume you've seen. You're making yourself look petty. This is all theatrics. We can talk this out like adults. If you call me back in the next hour, I'll reconsider some decisions that have been made in the heat of the moment." Some decisions. As if love could be locked in an HR file under tentative. I put my phone face down and signed the document in front of me, my name looping cleanly across the lines. When I looked up, I caught Nova watching me with professional curiosity, the way people look at a storm on the horizon, measuring how far the rain might drift. "You don't have to pretend you didn't see," I said. "Half the city's pretending with you." "I did see," she said. "But I'm personally invested in pretending not to." "Want dumplings?" "I turn into a better person if I feed other people first." We ate at our desks, dipping delicate crescents into chili oil while she downloaded me on everything I needed to know. By 5 p.m. she told stories in a way that made every person in them a protagonist, even our competitors. It took exactly 13 minutes for me to decide I never wanted to leave Veridia. At 4, the board call started. I hadn't planned to join it, but the chair had insisted. "You're relocating and increasing your stake," she'd said last week, tapping her pen against the table in our quiet meeting room. "I want your voice on record when we push the timeline forward." On the screen, thumbnails of faces arranged themselves like a deck of cards mid-shuffle. Legal, finance, product, 2 independent directors with ruthless eyes. And then, in a little square like a joke in the corner of a page, Liam. Our company had been a key supplier to Donovan Corporation for 4 years. Our new product line would either cement that relationship or make them small, fast, and irrelevant. The board had decided to accelerate the launch by 6 months. The memo had gone out yesterday morning. "Thank you, everyone," the chair said. "Let's address the Veridia schedule and the supply exposure to Donovan. Chloe, since you negotiated both back in the day and have the clearest picture of how it all knits together." I didn't look at Liam square as I spoke. I talked about capital expenditure in numbers that didn't need apology, then about quality control, then about the simple math of moral hazard. If a partner's leadership was unstable, your risk wasn't a line item, it was a culture tax you paid every quarter until something broke. "Our contracts give us explicit out clauses in the event of reputational harm," I finished. Overnight, Donovan's chief executive made their company the punchline of a social media challenge with real-world HR implications. He formalized an ultimatum that equalized a private relationship with a public vote. It undermines internal policy and external trust. "I recommend we suspend renewal discussions for the legacy suite and move up the contingency plan we discussed." "Chloe," Liam began, small in his square and trying to sound big. I kept my voice neutral. "If the board wants to maintain status quo, I'll execute. I won't co-sign the ethics risk. It's your decision." No one likes to be lectured, even when they deserve it. I didn't lecture. I put the contracts on the table and let the table speak. In the end, the vote wasn't close. We didn't sever anything. We let time do what it does best to arrogant men, apply pressure in silence. The call ended. I let myself look at Liam square as it blinked out. His background had been changed since morning, no more hastily arranged champagne bottle and hand-lettered 1000. Sign on the shelf behind him. Just a white wall and a single-frame degree, as if austerity could rewrite the last 24 hours. He called again. I sent him to voicemail again. I didn't check the transcript this time. Some things didn't need translation. The next week moved with that strange rush that happens after floodgates, everything once stuck starts sliding. In Veridia, we signed our first 2 clients ahead of schedule. We hired 5 engineers and a receptionist who could fix printers with a screwdriver and a whispered prayer. I found an apartment with windows tall enough to make the light a roommate and a plant that forgave me for underwatering it. News from the old city filtered in on a delay. An HR complaint had been filed anonymously. A client postponed a quarterly review. An internal memo reminded managers that relationships with direct reports must be disclosed and approved. It didn't name anyone. It didn't have to. On a Sunday morning, I got coffee with my mother on a bench by the river. She wore sunglasses the size of small saucers and a white linen dress she had kept carefully unsullied for what must have been a decade. "I wanted to see you in your new habitat before your father insisted on bringing a housewarming gift the size of a Venetian chandelier," she said, peeling a sugar packet open like it had offended her. "I'll tell security to refuse delivery if it doesn't fit in the elevator. Your father will find a way. The man once got a Steinway into a 4th-floor walk-up. Don't ask." She watched me for a moment over her cup. My mother's silences aren't empty. They contain sentences she doesn't trust herself to say without crying. "You look better," she said finally. "Less glassy. Like the world has edges again." It does have edges. "And that boy?" "Man. That man who was a boy when you met him. Is he done being a museum you curate?" "I think he's decided to curate himself," I said. "With Amber as chief docent." She laughed, short and mean and satisfied. "Good luck to them. May they be each other's taste until they drive each other mad." We sat quietly, the river noisier than usual, gulls complaining over something none of us could see. I felt it then, the grief I'd been too busy to feel. It arrived not like a wave but like a steady rain, the kind that ruins parades and nourishes orchards. I didn't try to push it away. My mother put her hand over mine and didn't move it. I didn't see Liam again until the awards dinner. It wasn't ours. We were too new for awards, though our application had slid through a committee with surprising speed. It was a citywide business gala where they mixed hospital donors with app founders and called it civic synergy. The fish was always overcooked, the speeches were always 5 minutes too long, the chandeliers made everyone look expensive and exhausted. Nova and I went because we needed to shake hands with two people whose signatures could shorten our runway by 6 months. We dressed like women who knew fabrics, she in silk printed with tiny cranes, me in something that looked simple until you touched it and realized it wasn't. At our table, a councilman told me a story about zoning that went nowhere and everywhere. Across the room, a screen looped sponsor logos with the relentless cheer of a real estate agent. I was considering the moral implications of stealing the chocolate torte from the empty setting beside me when a hush slid sideways across the room, one of those collective intakes of breath that says, something unscripted is about to happen. On the far side of the stage, Amber had taken the mic from a volunteer. She wore a dress that could get a woman excommunicated from a conservative church and a smile designed by someone who understood angles. Liam stood a step behind her, jaw tight. "Good evening," she chirped. "I hope you don't mind a tiny interruption." The MC minded. The MC minded a lot. He looked at the director of the venue with murder in his eyes. The director looked at the fire exits. All of it happened in the half second it took Amber to inhale. "I just wanted to thank the city for supporting us," she continued. "You've given us your attention, your likes, your love. Liam and I are so grateful. And we wanted to share a little more love back with you." She snapped her fingers. Attack no, it, pimply and earnest, projected a slideshow onto the huge screen. Photos of Liam and Amber at increasingly intimate distances. A ring box snapped open somewhere expensive. A caption, she said yes. The room split into equal parts delight, discomfort, and the particular schadenfreude only a city can brew. It should have embarrassed me. It didn't. Watching the two of them perform their happiness for people who didn't care whether it was real, I felt like someone standing behind glass watching a play staged underwater. Their words rose and popped without sound inside me. The MC wrestled the program back on track. The night moved forward. Nova leaned toward me and whispered, "We could slip out the side if you want to avoid a collision." "I'm not a fawn," I said, lightly. "And this isn't a grove. It's a room full of people who confuse proximity to power with power itself. We'll be fine." We were not fine. We were paying our coats and collecting our dignity when Liam appeared in the corridor that led to the lobby, all polished contrition and the particular smell of a man who still believes in his own legend. Amber hovered at his shoulder, lips parted in the eternal almost of a staged gasp. "Chloe," he said. "A word." "No," I said. "Just one," he pressed. "You owe me that much." "I don't," I said. "But you can have one anyway." "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Pulling out investments, pushing your little board to accelerate, whispering in ears. You're trying to punish me for something that got out of hand." "It didn't get out of hand," I said. "It was in your hand the whole time." He flinched, small and ugly. "Do you think this makes you look strong? Running away to a smaller city, playing venture capitalist with family money." "Careful," I said. "You're confusing what you know about me with all the things you never learned because you liked how my silence looked." Amber stepped forward, shining with engineered empathy. "Chloe, we never meant to hurt you. We only want everyone to be happy. You too. You've never been interested in everyone," I said. "Only in whoever mirrored you best." Her eyes went flat so fast it almost made me dizzy. "You're being unkind." "I'm being accurate." Security approached, soft-shoed and smiling, and asked if everything was all right in that tone that already knows the answer. Liam stuck his hands in his pockets and said of course in a voice that used to reassure bankers. The four of us smiled for the cameras that weren't there and parted. On the ride home, Nova said, "You held that like you were born with a spine made of piano wire." "I wasn't born with it," I said. "I tuned it." 2 weeks later, the first crack appeared. It didn't show up on the front page. It showed up in procurement approval logs and email servers. It showed up in signatures that didn't match. Amber's promotion to strategic liaison had allowed her to forward a trove of internal documents to her personal account, harmless, she would later insist, a habit formed from late nights and a glitchy VPN. One of those harmless documents included pricing models that our company had changed on a Friday. Her forwarded copy went out Thursday night. Somehow, a competitor showed up Monday with a bid 7% lower than ours and 2 days faster on delivery. Our in-house counsel at Veridia doesn't raise her voice. She raises eyebrows and exhibits. She sent a letter to Donovan Corporation reminding them of the NDA parameters and the unfun penalties that follow a breach. It was polite and lethal. It asked for nothing. It promised everything. The board at Donovan convened. They did not call it a crisis. They called it a review of governance. They appointed a special committee. They ordered outside counsel. They put Liam on a short vacation and gave Amber a title that sounded like an unpaid internship, The internet did what it always does when a drama loses novelty, it moved on to shinier cruelty. But inside the building where I had once known the janitor's schedule by heart, people began to speak the truth in the quiet, in the stairwells, in the spaces between Outlook pings. I didn't celebrate. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like physics. In Veridia, we launched. The product worked. Not flawlessly, not magically, like a machine built by sleep-deprived humans who cared. We held our breath as our first live data rolled through the dashboard, clean and crisp as a winter morning. I bought pastries for the office that flaked into a snowdrift of crumbs. Nova cried when the second client renewed in half the time we'd projected. Someone put a balloon on my chair as a joke. This time I kept it, tied to the leg of my desk like a gentle pet. I heard from Liam once more. He did not call. He wrote a letter. A real letter, on heavy paper, with a pen that required refills you had to ask a clerk for. It arrived folded exactly in thirds. He had always been good at folding. Chloe, it began, and the commas looked tidy enough to frame. I won't insult you by pretending I didn't know some of what Amber was doing. I can say truthfully that I didn't know all of it. That may not matter to you. Perhaps it shouldn't. I told myself you were being dramatic because that made you small enough to carry. I think I knew I was the one being dramatic, performing a version of myself to win applause from strangers who would forget my name after dessert. The 1,000 likes, the public declarations, I wish I could say I did it because I was drunk or provoked. The truth is worse, I did it because it felt easy. There are things we built together that I'm proud of. There are things I broke that I don't know how to fix. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't request affection. Consider this a record, for the drawer where you keep records of things that no longer determine who you are. I'm stepping down. The board will say it's for health or family. Sometimes the truth is a family of its own. I hope Veridia is what you wanted. I hope you never eat anything you don't want to because you're trying to keep a peace that doesn't exist. L. I read it twice and then put it in a folder with the mortgage deed for my apartment and the photo of the wooden cabin I built with hands that blistered and healed. A record, like he asked. Not a talisman. Not a knife. Time did its patient work. Donovan Corporation didn't collapse. It shrank into itself like a wool sweater washed too hot. Amber started a channel about workplace empowerment and then pivoted to skincare. She still looked excellent from certain angles. The comments were less kind. It turns out audiences like villains only when the script lets them lose. I bumped into Liam once on a weekday afternoon when the river had decided to be green. He was in Veridia, of all places, which felt like a coincidence too big to be accidental. He looked smaller in a way that couldn't be chalked up to weight loss. The city, greedy but fair, gobbled him up the same as everyone else. We stood on the footbridge where teenagers carved initials into the rail and pretended time wouldn't sand them down. He held a paper bag with an apple sticking out, like a still life. I'm not here to ruin your afternoon, he said. I'm seeing a recruiter in the building over there. He jerked his chin at a square of mirrored glass. I didn't assume you were here to see me, I said. I don't assume much about you at all anymore. It makes the world calmer. He nodded. We watched a pair of ducks negotiate a current that didn't care. When he spoke again, his voice had that worn softness roads get when they've been traveled enough to know better. You were right about the eggplant, he said. It was never about eggplant. It rarely is. Do you ever see the balloons? He asked, and the question surprised me. For half a second, I thought he meant the comments. Then I remembered the movie. The house that floats because love is determined enough to deny gravity. A promise made when our mouths still believed our hands could keep up. Sometimes, I said. Usually when I'm carrying groceries. He smiled a little. That's cruel of them. Not really. They make me look up. It's useful to remember there's a sky. He didn't apologize and I didn't ask for one. We said goodbye like neighbors who once shared a wall and now share a city. It was the right size for us. Work bloomed. My apartment filled with books and bowls that didn't match. On Sundays, I called my parents. My father tried to sound casual when he asked about the company's burn rate. My mother refused to sound casual about anything. She came to visit and rearranged my spices and we did not fight about it, which felt like an achievement worthy of an engraved plaque. I started running into a man named Ian at the cafe downstairs. He wore suits that made sense and a watch that didn't brag. He ordered Americano in the summer and hot chocolate in the winter, and he always held the door without the performance of holding the door. He worked in city planning, which meant he could talk for 40 minutes about curb cuts and make me believe we were discussing philosophy. We became friends. Then we became something that felt like standing under a good roof during rain. He didn't turn me into a better person. He made me interested in how I was already improving without noticing. The first time he came to my office, he tapped the balloon string tied to my desk. It rose and fell once, repeating the smallest motion in the world. "Insurance policy?" he asked. "Evidence," I said. "Of what?" "That if something wants to leave, you have to tie it down. Gently, not like a jailer. And you have to check the knot every now and then." He considered that and then nodded, as if I had said something practical instead of metaphorical. He's like that, which is helpful on Sundays when the metaphor tries to sneak back into things like laundry. On the first anniversary of the day I left, I woke before my alarm. I went to the river, where the water kept pretending not to be water. The city had already had 3 coffee shops worth of caffeine. Joggers bent the air around them with their insistence. I walked to the little convenience store on the corner that sells everything from glue to sincerity. I bought an eggplant. It was glossy, oblong, a purple you don't find outside fruit and velvet. I carried it home and set it on my kitchen counter. For a while it was just there, solid and a little ridiculous, like a prop left behind after the actors go home. Around noon, I sliced it, salted it, waited for the beads of bitterness to rise. I pressed them away with the flat of my knife. I seared the slices in oil until they went from stubborn to yielding, added garlic, tomatoes, a handful of basil that had the audacity to grow on my windowsill. I ate the meal alone, not as penance or celebration, but as proof. After, I washed the pan and set it to dry at an angle, the way my mother taught me when I was 12 and heartbroken about a girl in a book. I opened the window. Veridia breathed in. I breathed out. There were, I knew, people in the city still telling my story like a cautionary tale or a punchline. There were people in other cities telling it like a myth, a woman who withdrew her love and her money at the same time and lived to tell the tale. Neither version felt like me. I was a woman who learned how to move the chair when the sun moved. A woman who did not eat what she didn't want to eat. A woman who kept records, not grudges. That afternoon, Nova texted me a photo of a contract with a smiley face drawn on it, 2 dots and a line that leaned left. "Good things," she wrote. "You did that." "We did that," I replied, because I have learned to share credit with the same gusto I share pastry. I took the long way to the office, across the footbridge and past the cafe where the barista had started spelling my name correctly without announcing it. I watched a child let go of a red balloon and then immediately regret it. He cried for 3 seconds and then his father pointed up, and the kid's face changed. He watched it climb until it was small as a pinprick and then he clapped, like the sky had performed a trick just for him. In the lobby, the security guard nodded at me like we were co-conspirators. On my desk, the balloon bobbed once, greeting me. I opened my laptop and split my screen between a spreadsheet and a poem someone had emailed me anonymously, which is a thing that happens when you make yourself visible in a city that prizes invisibility. The poem wasn't great, but it had a line that would not leave me alone. "We are taught that leaving is a synonym for loss when it is more often a precondition for light." I saved the line into my records. I returned to contracts that didn't care whether poetry existed. I wrote emails that sounded like doors opening and closing. I put one foot in front of the other and let the river keep its secrets. When the afternoon tilted toward evening, Ian texted to ask if I wanted to try a new place that made pasta like it was inventing pasta. I said yes. In the elevator, I checked my reflection and recognized her, a woman whose face had become her own, not because it hadn't been before, but because there were no longer hands pushing it toward a preferred angle. On the sidewalk, the city didn't feel smaller anymore. It felt mind-sized, which is to say, it fit. We walked without hurry. At a stoplight, I glanced up just in time to see a smear of color drift above the rooftops, a balloon someone else had let go without meaning to, or maybe on purpose. I didn't wish on it. I didn't assign it meaning. I watched it climb and whispered, half to myself, half to the girl I was when I thought the only way to save love was to carry it like furniture, may whatever you rise for hold. Ian squeezed my hand once, the version of applause you give a person who doesn't need a stage anymore. The light changed. We crossed. Later that night, after good food and better quiet, my phone buzzed on the nightstand with a news alert I almost ignored. Habit 1. I glanced. The headline was simple: former CEO issues statement, apologizes to staff. It was Liam, words carefully lawyered and, for once, punctured with something that looked like sincerity. He apologized for the ultimatum incident and for boundary failures. He did not say my name. He didn't need to. He offered to return part of his severance to fund a scholarship for women entering the industry, the kind of gesture that could be cynical and, sometimes, is still useful. The comments were split evenly between contempt and absolution. I closed the app. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt unburdened in a way that made sleep easy and morning likely. In the morning, the plant by my window had unfolded 2 new leaves like hands shrugging off a blanket. I watered it and hummed something off-key. A message blinked on my laptop from a junior analyst who joined 2 days ago and already found a mistake in a formula. "Good catch," I wrote back. "Make it yours." That's the thing about leaving, about breaking, about eggplants and balloons and the kind of love people confuse with possession. You think the story ends with the door closing and the echo of your own brave footsteps. It doesn't. It ends in 1,000 small choices: salt, sear, sign, send. It ends with you in a kitchen tasting something and deciding it's good enough and deciding you, astonishingly, are too. By noon, the sun had shifted. I pulled the accordion blind down a notch. A gentler light spread across my desk. The balloon bobbed in approval because that's what balloons do, they make everything look like agreement. The river, far below, misbehaved prettily. Somewhere across town, people were still deciding what to think about a letter they hadn't been asked to write. Here, at this desk, in this life, I was busy, and then I wasn't, and then I was again, and none of it hinged on whether a man chose to eat what another woman had put on his plate. I opened the folder where I keep my records. I added a line that didn't require anyone else's signature. The like count doesn't decide who marries whom. But I can decide what I like. And I choose this.